My hands shook as I forced the drawer open, the wood creaking like it was warning me to stop. Papers spilled out, and there it was, a folder marked with my husband's name, stuffed with documents that would change everything. Bank statements, forged signatures, emails plotting to cut us out. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. How could he do this? My husband's best friend, his business partner for years, had stolen it all right under our noses. Let me back up just a bit, because you need to understand how I got here, sneaking into his office in the dead of night. I'm Lena, a woman who thought she had it all figured out. Married to Ryan for 10 years, we built a life together in a quiet suburb, with dreams of starting a family someday. Ryan was the dreamer, always full of ideas, and that's how he started his tech company. It was small at first, just him tinkering in the garage, but then Victor came along. Victor, with his sharp suits and smoother talk, promised to take it to the next level. They became partners, 50-50, and for a while it worked. The company grew, money started rolling in, and we even bought our dream house. I handled the books part-time, keeping things organized while Ryan focused on the inventions. But lately, things felt off. Ryan would come home exhausted, muttering about deals falling through or clients backing out. "It's just business ups and downs," he'd say, forcing a smile. I believed him at first, but then the calls started. Creditors asking about late payments, suppliers demanding money we supposedly owed. I confronted Ryan one evening over dinner. "What's going on? We're drowning in bills and the accounts don't add up." He looked away, his face pale. "Victor's handling it. He says it'll sort itself out." I couldn't shake the worry. One night, while Ryan was asleep, I logged into the company server from home. What I found made my stomach drop. Funds transferred to unknown accounts, expenses I never approved, and Victor's signature everywhere. It looked like he was siphoning money bit by bit. But why? We trusted him like family. He'd been at our wedding, toasted to our future. The next day, I tried to talk to Ryan again, but he brushed it off. "Victor wouldn't do that. We've been through too much together." The tension built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. I started noticing little things: Victor avoiding my calls, Ryan's growing distance. Then came the day everything shattered. Ryan came home early, his face ashen, clutching a letter. "It's over," he whispered, collapsing into a chair. The company had been sold, without his knowledge. Victor had forged documents, convinced investors that Ryan was stepping down due to personal issues. Our shares, worthless now. The house, the savings, everything tied to the business. Gone. We were broke, facing eviction, with debts piling up. I felt the anger rise like a wave crashing over me. "How could he betray us like this?" I yelled, tears streaming down my face. Ryan just sat there, broken, unable to even look at me. That night, as he slept fitfully, I lay awake, replaying every moment. The laughter at barbecues, the late-night strategy sessions, it was all a lie. Victor had played us, taken everything we worked for. But as the hours ticked by, a spark ignited in me. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Quietly, I slipped out of bed, grabbed my keys, and drove to the old office building. It was empty now, the sign already removed, but I knew where Victor kept his secrets. His desk, always locked, in the corner office. Breaking in was easier than I thought, a loose window from the back alley. My pulse raced as I navigated the dark rooms, flashlight in hand. What if I got caught? What if there was nothing? But I had to know. And there, in that drawer, the truth stared back at me. Not just the theft from our company, but more. Evidence of embezzlement from past jobs, tax fraud, even bribes to silence former partners. My mind reeled. This wasn't just about us. Victor was a criminal through and through. As I stuffed the papers into my bag, a mix of shock and determination washed over me. He thought he could destroy us, but he had no idea what was coming. The drive home was a blur, my thoughts racing. How deep did this go? Could I use this to fight back? Ryan was still asleep when I returned, oblivious to my midnight mission. I hid the folder under the mattress, my secret weapon. But the emotional weight hit me hard the next morning. Seeing Ryan's defeated eyes over breakfast, knowing we'd lost our home soon, it broke something inside me. I wanted to scream, to confront Victor right then, but I held back. Rushing in would ruin everything. Instead, I forced a calm facade, hugging Ryan tightly. "We'll get through this," I said. But inside, the fire burned brighter. He had taken everything, but I had the key to his downfall now. As days passed, the silence between us grew. Ryan sank into despair, barely eating, while I observed, piecing together the puzzle from those documents. Late nights, I'd pore over them, connecting dots. Victor wasn't just greedy, he was reckless, leaving a trail that could bury him. But I needed a plan, something solid. The betrayal stung deeper each time I thought about it. Our dreams shattered, our trust violated. Yet in that pain, a resolve formed. I wouldn't let him win, not like this. The breaking point came one rainy afternoon. A knock at the door. Eviction notice. Ryan crumpled the paper, tears in his eyes. "What do we do now, Lena?" he asked, voice cracking. I held him, feeling the sadness twist like a knife. But as he sobbed, my mind shifted to those papers. It was time to turn the tables. No more waiting in the shadows. I stood in our half-empty kitchen the morning after the eviction notice arrived, staring at the coffee pot like it held answers. Ryan hadn't spoken more than 5 words since the paper hit the table. He just sat at the small breakfast nook, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on nothing. The man who used to fill every room with big ideas and louder laughs now looked like someone had turned down the volume on his entire existence. I poured him a cup anyway, black, no sugar, just how he liked it before everything collapsed. When I set it in front of him, his fingers brushed mine for half a second. That tiny contact felt like electricity and grief at the same time. I wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all, but screaming wouldn't bring back the company, the house, or the decade we poured into building something real. Instead, I said softly, "We still have each other." He gave the smallest nod, the kind that says, "I hear you, but I don't believe it anymore." That was when the quiet revenge really began. Not with noise, not with confrontation, but with observation. I became a ghost in my own life. I watched, I listened, I collected fragments. First, Victor's new life splashed across social media like cheap perfume. He'd posted photos from a rooftop bar downtown, city lights glittering behind him, a bottle of champagne I recognized from our old celebration stash, arm around a woman half his age who definitely wasn't his wife of 15 years. Caption, "New chapter, new views." The comments were full of fire emojis and living the dream messages. I felt bile rise in my throat. He wasn't just surviving, he was celebrating on money that should have been ours. A late-night phone call I overheard while Ryan was in the shower, Victor's voice on speaker because Ryan still hadn't learned to lower the volume when he was upset. "Look, man, it's business. You were dragging the company down with your health stuff. I did what was best for everyone." Health stuff? Ryan had mentioned mild anxiety once, nothing that stopped him from working 80-hour weeks. Victor had twisted even that into a weapon. Ryan hung up without a word. When he came out of the bathroom, towel around his neck, eyes red, he didn't mention the call. He just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. I wanted to wrap my arms around him and promise the world would make sense again, but promises felt hollow now. The lawyer we could no longer afford told us, over a tense coffee meeting we paid for with the last of our emergency cash, that civil court would take years and tens of thousands we didn't have. "Civil court is hard to prove without original documents and witnesses," she said gently, "and even then, corporate structures protect people like him." I thanked her politely, walked out into the parking lot and let the cold February air slap my face until the tears stopped. Then I drove straight to the public library 3 towns over. Why there? Because our internet had been cut 2 days earlier, and I refused to use the last of our phone data searching for ways to destroy a man who deserved it. I spent 6 hours in a quiet corner cubicle, printing, reading, cross-referencing. Corporate fraud statutes, whistleblower protections, anonymous tip lines to tax authorities, and securities regulators. patterns of behavior that matched what I'd found in Victor's desk. Every page felt like adding another brick to the wall I was building between him and his perfect new life. When the library closed, I came home to find Ryan asleep on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. I covered him with the throw blanket we bought on our honeymoon trip to the coast, the one place we ever really got away. Looking at him like that, so small against the cushions, something inside me hardened into steel. I wasn't going to confront Victor with tears and shouting. That would give him the chance to lie, to play victim, to twist the story until I looked unhinged. No, I would move like water, slow, patient, finding every crack until the whole dam gave way. The next 3 weeks became a strange rhythm. By day, I helped Ryan pack what little we could keep into storage pods we paid for with garage sale money. By night, I worked. I created 3 separate email accounts with fake but believable names. I started small, forwarding scanned copies of the most blatant forgeries to junior staff at the investment firms that had backed the sale. Nothing accusatory at first, just thought you should see this in case it affects due diligence. Attached, 1 page, timestamped, showing Victor's signature on a board resolution that Ryan had never seen. Silence at first. Then one investor replied, "Can you provide more context?" I sent 2 more pages. Another asked for originals. I sent high-resolution scans with metadata intact. Meanwhile, I filed an anonymous IRS tip through their official whistleblower portal. I included account numbers, transfer dates, amounts that matched luxury car purchases, and vacation rentals I'd seen on Victor's profiles. I attached just enough to make them look twice, never everything at once. Let them chase, let them dig. I also reached out, still anonymously, to 2 former employees Victor had quietly pushed out over the years. One was a lead developer who'd left after creative differences. The other was the old CFO who'd been replaced the month before the sale. I sent them the same gentle opener. I believe you may have been wronged in a similar way. If you're willing, I have documentation. The developer responded within 48 hours. I always knew something was off. He promised me equity that never materialized. She sent me old emails proving Victor had lied about stock options. Gold. The ex-CFO took longer, 3 weeks of silence. Then 1 line. Meet me. Coffee. Neutral place. Bring proof. We met at a busy chain cafe on the edge of the city at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. She was early, sitting with her back to the wall, sunglasses even though it was overcast. When I slid into the booth and placed a plain manila envelope between us, her hand trembled slightly as she opened it. After 10 minutes of reading, she looked up, eyes glassy. "This is worse than I thought." I nodded once. "He took everything from us, too." She exhaled slowly. "I kept records, not everything, but enough, and I know people at the State Securities Board. If you're serious." "I am." She slid a USB drive across the table. "Don't use my name unless it's absolutely necessary, but use everything else." I left that meeting feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Control. That night, Ryan asked me, quietly, almost afraid, "Why do you look calmer?" I kissed his forehead. "Because I finally understand the rules of the game we're playing." He didn't press. Maybe he was too tired. Maybe he trusted me more than he trusted himself right now. Either way, he let it be. But inside, the plan was accelerating. Victor thought he'd won cleanly. He thought the story ended with him sipping champagne on a rooftop while we packed boxes. He had no idea the ground beneath him was already cracking. The USB drive from the ex-CFO felt heavier in my palm than it should have. It was just plastic and metal, yet it carried years of someone else's anger, someone else's proof. I sat at the tiny folding table we'd set up in our rented single room, kitchen, bedroom, and living space all in one, and plugged it in. Files opened like wounds. Emails Victor sent to board members calling Ryan unstable and a liability. Screenshots of wire transfers to shell companies with names that sounded suspiciously like vacation properties in Bali and Aspen. a draft letter to the investors explaining why the sale needed to happen urgently and why Ryan's signature wasn't required because he was medically incapacitated. There was even a scanned doctor's note, forged, obviously, dated the week before the board vote. I leaned back against the wall and let out a long, shaky breath. This wasn't amateur greed anymore. This was calculated, layered, rehearsed destruction. I copied everything onto an encrypted external drive I'd bought with the last $20 from selling my grandmother's silver bracelet. Then I made 3 more anonymous submissions. To the state securities regulator, full packet with timestamps, metadata, and cross-referenced bank records. To the IRS Criminal Investigations Division, focusing on the tax evasion trail, offshore accounts, undeclared income, fake deductions. To the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, because some of the forged documents crossed state lines and used interstate wire transfers. Each submission was careful. No emotion, no name, just facts in neat rows like surgical instruments laid out before an operation. 2 weeks later, the first tremor hit. A former colleague of Ryan's, someone who'd left the company 6 months before the sale, texted me out of the blue. "Hey Lena, saw something weird. Victor's name just popped up in a Bloomberg alert. Some regulatory inquiry. You guys okay?" I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. "We're hanging in. What did the alert say?" "Preliminary review of recent acquisition due to whistleblower complaint." That's all it showed before it vanished from the feed. Weird, right? Not weird. Progress. I didn't tell Ryan yet. He was fragile enough. Every morning he'd wake up, make coffee like it was a ritual of survival, then sit quietly while I pretended to scroll job listings on my cracked phone screen. He thought I was applying for administrative assistant roles. I was actually monitoring dark web forums where disgruntled ex-employees sometimes leaked more dirt, cross-checking names and dates. Then came the second tremor. Victor's wife, Claire, called me. I almost didn't answer. The number showed up as unknown, but I recognized the area code. My thumb hovered. Then I pressed accept. "Lena?" Her voice sounded thin, like she'd been crying for days. "Claire?" A long pause. "I need to talk to someone who won't lie to me." My grip tightened on the phone. "About Victor sold the lake house last month. Didn't even tell me until the check cleared. Said it was to reinvest in the business. But there is no business anymore. And now he's angry all the time. Snaps at the kids, disappears for days. I found divorce papers in his briefcase already signed. My name, not his." Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, "Did he do this to you too?" I closed my eyes. Worse. Another long breath from her end. "I have things. Photos of documents he told me to shred. Bank statements. I kept copies because... I don't know. I just did. I didn't push. I waited." "I want to help," she said finally. "Not for you, for me. For my kids. If he goes down, I need to make sure we're protected." I gave her the same anonymous Dropbox link I'd used for others. Send whatever you're comfortable with. No pressure, no names if you don't want. She sent 17 files that night. Among them, a photo of Victor laughing on a yacht with one of the investors who'd approved the sale, time-stamped 3 days after Ryan received the termination letter. Caption on the back of the printed photo, in Victor's handwriting, "Thanks for making it easy." That photo became my centerpiece. I didn't sleep much after that. Instead, I built the timeline. Year by year, lie by lie, transfer by transfer. I turned chaos into a story any regulator, any jury, any journalist could follow with their eyes closed. Then I made the riskiest move yet. I contacted a financial crimes reporter at a major outlet, not the flashy national one, someone quieter, hungrier, with a track record of taking down mid-level white-collar crooks before they became untouchable. Her name was Mara. We met on an encrypted video call at 2 a.m. my time. She didn't waste words. "Show me what you've got." I screen shared the sanitized version, names redacted except Victor's, sensitive account numbers partially masked, enough to prove pattern and intent. She watched in silence for 23 minutes. When the screen went dark again, she said only one sentence. "How soon can you get me the unredacted originals?" I answered without hesitation. "Tomorrow, but only if you promise the story runs with real protection for sources." Standard whistleblower protocols. I've done this before. We ended the call. The next evening, I drove to a 24-hour shipping center 2 counties away. I wore a baseball cap, kept my head down, paid cash. The package went out priority overnight to a P.O. box Mara had given me. When I got back to our rented room, Ryan was awake. He looked at me with those tired, searching eyes. "You're different lately." I sat beside him on the narrow mattress. "Different how?" "Calmer, like you know something I don't." I took his hand. For the first time in months, I let myself feel the full weight of what I was carrying. "I'm fighting back," I said quietly. "Not with fists, not with yelling, with truth, and it's starting to hurt him." He searched my face. "Are you safe?" "I think so, but even if I'm not, it's worth it. For us, for what he stole." Ryan pulled me close. It was the first real embrace in months that didn't feel like two broken people just trying to hold each other upright. It felt like a promise. 2 days later, Mara texted one word: "Received." Then nothing for 4 days. On the 5th day, Victor's LinkedIn profile changed. The banner that used to read Founder and CEO Next Gen Innovations now simply said Entrepreneur. His website went dark, his Instagram stopped posting, and Claire texted me one line: "He's been served, both civil and criminal. He's panicking." I stared at the message until the screen went black. Then I cried. Not from sadness, from relief so sharp it cut. The morning the story broke, I wasn't ready for how loud silence could be. Ryan had gone out early. First time in weeks he'd left the apartment for something other than groceries. He said he needed air. I didn't argue. I just kissed his cheek and watched him walk down the cracked concrete stairs until he disappeared around the corner. I stayed behind with my laptop open to the Financial Crimes Reporter's publication page. The article wasn't live yet. Mara had warned me it would drop without warning, usually early, before the subject could lawyer up and spin. At 7:14 a.m., the headline appeared like a blade sliding out of its sheath. Multi-million-dollar tech exit unravels. Forgery, embezzlement allegations target former CEO Victor Hale. I clicked. The opening paragraph was clinical, almost bored. Federal authorities and state regulators have launched parallel investigations into Victor Hale, former CEO of Next Gen Innovations, following whistleblower documents alleging widespread financial misconduct, including securities fraud, tax evasion, and the fraudulent sale of a privately held tech company in 2024. Then the photos. Victor on that yacht, Victor cutting the ribbon at the new office opening we never got to celebrate, Victor smiling beside Ryan at our company's 5-year anniversary, Ryan cropped out of the online version, of course. Bullet points followed like gunshots. Multiple forged signatures on board resolutions and sale documents. Transfer of over $4.7 million to offshore accounts tied to Hale-controlled entities. False medical claims used to sideline Ryan without compensation. Luxury purchases inconsistent with reported income, including a $180,000 sports car purchased 2 weeks after the company's sale. There was a quote from an unnamed source at the securities board. "The paper trail is unusually clear for a case of this complexity. We are moving quickly." I read it twice. Then I closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen sink, and threw up. Not from horror, from the sudden release of pressure that had lived inside my chest for months, like a fist finally unclenching. When Ryan came back an hour later carrying 2 cheap coffees in paper cups, his face looked different. Not happy, not yet, but lighter. "You saw?" I asked. He nodded. Someone at the old coffee shop had it open on their phone. The whole place was talking about it. He set the cups down and sat beside me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. We just listened to the hum of the mini fridge and the distant sound of traffic. Finally, he said, very quietly, "I didn't think it would feel like this." Like what? Like breathing again. I reached for his hand. Our fingers laced together the way they used to before everything cracked. That afternoon, the calls started. First, Claire, voice shaking but steady. "They searched the house this morning, took his computers, files, even the safe in the garage. He's at the lawyer's now. He hasn't come home." I didn't say I was sorry. I wasn't. Next came a blocked number. I answered anyway. A man's voice, calm and professional. "This is Special Agent Torres, Financial Crimes Unit. I'm trying to reach Lena Carter regarding information submitted anonymously about Victor Hale." My mouth went dry. "Speaking? We'd like to speak with you in person, soon. You're not in any trouble, we just need to verify chain of custody on certain documents." I glanced at Ryan. He gave a small nod. "When and where?" I asked. "Tomorrow, our field office, 10 a.m. Bring anyone you trust." I hung up and looked at Ryan. "They want to talk to me, officially." He swallowed. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." He squeezed my hand. "Then we go together." The next morning, we walked into the federal building wearing the only clothes that still looked decent. My navy blazer from job interviews I never got, Ryan's one remaining button-down. We were escorted to a plain conference room. 2 agents waited. Torres, mid-40s, calm eyes, and a woman named Patel who took notes without once looking surprised. They didn't threaten, they didn't accuse, they just asked questions and listened. I told them everything, starting from the forged documents in Victor's desk, the anonymous tips, the meeting with the ex-CFO, Claire's files, the timeline I built. I left nothing out except the exact Dropbox links. Those stayed mine until warrants came. When I finished, Torres leaned forward slightly. "Everything you've provided matches what we've independently uncovered. We're preparing charges: wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, possibly conspiracy if others were involved." He paused. "We'll need you to testify if it goes to trial." Ryan's grip on my knee tightened. I met Torres's eyes. "Will he go to prison?" Torres didn't flinch. "If the evidence holds and it's strong, yes. Multiple years. Restitution is also likely." We left the building into pale winter sunlight. Ryan stopped on the sidewalk, looked up at the sky, closed his eyes for a second. "I thought revenge would feel like winning," he said. "It doesn't. It just feels finished." I wrapped my arms around him right there on the street. People walked past us like we were invisible. "It's not revenge anymore," I whispered. "It's justice, and we're still here." 3 months later, the indictment came down. 27 counts. Victor pleaded not guilty at the arraignment. Bail was set at $2.3 million, cash only. He couldn't post it. He sat in county jail for 6 weeks before his attorney managed to get him released on stricter conditions: ankle monitor, surrendered passport, and no contact with witnesses. Claire filed for divorce the same week. She kept the kids and most of what remained after the government seized assets tied to the fraud. Ryan and I didn't get the house back. We didn't get millions, but a civil settlement was reached, quietly, through attorneys, after Victor's legal fees drained what he had left. It wasn't fortune, it was enough to start over. A small down payment on a modest townhouse, medical insurance, breathing room. The last time I saw Victor was in a courtroom hallway during a pre-trial hearing. He looked smaller, thinner, eyes hollow. He glanced at me once, briefly, then looked away like I was a stranger. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel hatred. I just felt done. The courtroom smelled like old wood polish and nervous sweat. I sat in the 3rd row from the back, Ryan beside me, our hands locked so tightly my knuckles ached. We hadn't spoken much on the drive over. There wasn't anything left to say that hadn't already been carved into us over the past 14 months. Victor entered last. No sharp suit today, just a plain gray shirt, tie slightly crooked, hair thinner than I remembered. He didn't look our way. He kept his eyes on the floor, on the table in front of him, anywhere but at the people whose lives he had tried to erase. The judge read the charges in a flat, practiced voice: wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, 27 counts in total. When the list ended, the room felt smaller, heavier. Victor's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client wishes to change his plea." A ripple moved through the gallery, soft gasps, a few whispers. Ryan's grip tightened until it hurt. "To guilty," the attorney finished. The judge asked the standard questions. Victor answered each one in a low, mechanical voice. Yes, he understood the rights he was giving up. Yes, he was pleading guilty freely and voluntarily. Yes, he admitted the facts laid out in the indictment were true. When it was over, the judge set sentencing for 6 weeks later and remanded Victor into custody. No bail this time. As deputies moved to escort him out, he finally lifted his head. Our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds. There was no defiance left in his face, no smirk, just exhaustion and something that looked dangerously close to regret. Then he looked away and was gone. Outside on the courthouse steps, the January wind cut straight through my coat. Ryan stopped halfway down and turned to face me. "It's really over," he said. The words came out like he was testing them. I nodded. "It's over." We didn't celebrate. We didn't cheer. We just stood there letting the cold sink in until our fingers went numb. That evening, we drove to the little townhouse we'd closed on 3 months earlier. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, backyard barely big enough for a swing set we hadn't bought yet. But it was ours. No eviction notices taped to the door, no creditors calling at dawn. We unpacked the last box that night. Inside were the few things we'd kept from the old life: our wedding album, Ryan's first patent certificate, framed now, a photo of us laughing on the beach the summer before everything broke. I set the photo on the mantel and stepped back. Ryan came up behind me, arms sliding around my waist. "Do you ever think about what we lost?" he asked quietly. "Every day." He rested his chin on my shoulder. "Do you regret any of it? Going after him?" I turned in his arms so I could see his face. "Not for a second." He searched my eyes for a long moment, then kissed me, slow, careful, like he was making sure I was still real. Later, we sat on the floor of the empty living room surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, sharing takeout pizza on paper plates. The television was on low in the background, some local news station running a short segment. Former tech executive Victor Hale pleaded guilty today to multiple felony counts of fraud and tax evasion. Sentencing is scheduled for next month. Authorities say restitution to victims could reach several $1 million. We didn't turn the volume up. We didn't need to. When the segment ended, Ryan muted the TV and looked at me. "I used to dream about the day we'd get justice," he said. I pictured myself standing tall, looking him in the eye, saying something clever and cutting. But today, I just felt tired and grateful. Grateful? That we made it through, that we're still us. I leaned my head against his shoulder. We're more us now than we were before. He let out a small, surprised laugh, the first real one I'd heard in too long. "You're right, we're tougher, and maybe a little wiser." We sat in silence after that, listening to the house settle around us. The radiator clicked, a car passed outside. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once, then went quiet. I thought about everything that had happened, not just the betrayal, not just the revenge, but the long, quiet months in between. The nights I cried myself to sleep so Ryan wouldn't hear. The mornings I forced myself to smile so he wouldn't give up. The way we learned, slowly, painfully, to lean on each other again instead of pretending everything was fine. Betrayal doesn't just take money or houses or companies. It takes trust. It takes the assumption that the person sleeping next to you won't turn into a stranger. And when that happens, the wound goes deeper than any bank account can measure. But here's what I learned in the wreckage. The people who hurt you the most don't get to write the ending. You do. Sometimes justice arrives in handcuffs and headlines. Sometimes it arrives in small, ordinary moments. A new front door key in your hand, a laugh that isn't forced, a partner who looks at you and really sees you again. Victor took almost everything we had built. He didn't take us. And that, in the end, was the only thing that mattered. Months later, on a quiet Saturday morning, Ryan came into the kitchen carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He set one in front of me and sat down across the table. "I've been thinking," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" He smiled, small but real. "I want to start something again. Not big, not like before, just something ours. Maybe consulting, maybe a little software tool for small businesses, something simple." I studied his face. The shadows were still there, but they didn't own him anymore. "Are you sure?" I asked. He nodded. "I'm sure I don't want fear to win, and I'm sure I want to do it with you." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Then let's do it." Outside the window, the first spring leaves were starting to appear. Tiny, fragile, impossibly green. We had time. We had each other. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.